So welcome everyone. I hope we got some time to gather. So yeah, just picking up threads from where we stopped last. 364. So we were on the chapter The Release from the Ego, page number 364, and I think we have done half of this paragraph, but we can maybe take it again. So yes, if anyone would like to go through it again, I don't know where to stop. It's a big one. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, Monica, I'll read.
Of course, yeah, please.
When there is an insufficient purity in the mental being, the release appears at first to be partial and temporary. The jiva seems to descend again into the egoistic life and the higher consciousness to be withdrawn from him. In reality, what happens is that a cloud or veil intervenes between the lower nature and the higher consciousness, and the Prakriti resumes for a time its old habits of working under the pressure, but not always with the knowledge or present memory of that high experience. What works in it then is a ghost of the old ego supporting the mechanical repetition of the old habits upon the remnants of confusion and impurity still left in the system. The cloud intervenes and disappears. The rhythm of ascent and descent renews itself until the impurity has been worked out. This period of alternations may easily be long in the integral yoga. So I'll continue.
Yeah, maybe you can take a little bit more.
Yeah. For there, an entire perfection of the system is required. It must be capable at all times and in all conditions and all circumstances, whether of action or inaction, of admitting and then living in the consciousness of the supreme truth.
Yeah, yeah. We
So till
can.
we did last week, no?
Yeah, so this was what we touched upon last week. Yes.
I think we went all the way until firmly founded Brahmic consciousness.
Okay. Possible. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, possible. But I thought maybe we'll just reiterate something, the crux from this, and then we can again, you know, it's never enough. Many a times, we do repetitions and it's always, yeah, nice. So it's good that we don't remember fully so that we can repeat. Yeah. Yeah. So anything here anyone wants to share, or maybe crux of the matter anyone wants to point out at? So we can take that. So I think this just reminded me of the pendulum-like movement that we were talking of. That it's okay, it's fine to have the pendulum-like movement, which will continue for a long time as long as any remnants of impurities are still left. So in few moments we may be just uplifted in our consciousness and totally disengaged from the entanglements of our day-to-day life. That's also real. And in many moments I'll be in the down in the slippery slopes and again repeating the same patterns, and that's also real. So this will continue because something in me is working like a magnet. It still wants something from those entanglements, so that pendulum like movement will go on. But it's okay, I mean, it's part of the process. We don't have to get discouraged. So that's what he was sharing, that when that cloud, a period of cloud, as if it comes and then it goes, stays for some time, And then the cloud intervenes and disappears. The rhythm of ascent descent renews itself until the impurity has been worked out. So, and the period of alternations may easily be long in the integral yoga, for their an entire perfection of the system is required. So we don't have to get discouraged at times and feel frustrated that, oh my God, why is it not working? It is working. When it's pendulum like movement, it is working. At times feeling uplifted and a kind of purity in our consciousness, at times again drawn back into those slippery slopes and old storylines. It's yeah, part of the game.
I think that was my realization, especially last week when we went to this session, because I was talking about how my, my aspiration to mother, sometimes it is very strong, and sometimes I find myself asking why this path? Like, why not just go out and be the person that everyone is, just hanging out and making fun and all that. So to see that even it is clearly written that this process is necessary and that it is long in the integral yoga, and it is actually helpful in the, like it says there, that for the entire perfection of the system, because unless I don't go through these ups and downs, I will it means that I need this experience to recognize the same pattern if it were to come in the future. So that was yeah, so I'm happy it's written and I can read it sometimes. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And also we have to see that it seems like we are different human beings in different stages of life. But actually, if we look at it closely, I contain all those stages which I look at in other human beings. So just like you shared that, why can't I just have fun? And you will see that even now, no matter how serious you may get, for the yoga, even now there will be instances where you are having fun, and many other people may look at you and say, oh, why can't I have fun like that? So we are like, all the variety that we see around. At times we think that maybe I have crossed that phase, but it's very interesting and intriguing to see that even now in our many instances of our life, we touch those spaces on and off, on and off. So I am those human beings which I see around me at various instances of time. So yeah. uh, we can't hear you. Yeah. नहीं नहीं आपका unmuted है, but I can't hear you. Maybe plug in the whatever the wire you have. I don't know. No, nothing. नहीं. No, no, but log in, no? Try to do it again, or maybe remove the internal speaker. Maybe you can say internal speaker of the laptop. You can use. Carry on, please. Okay. But I hope you are able to speak. Okay, anyway, you go ahead. Try it again. Yeah, anyway, again later. So this was what we touched upon last time. Let's take a little further. Nor is it enough. I think this was also what we touched upon. So I'll just read these 4 lines. Nor is it enough for the sadhaka to have the utter realization only in the trance of samadhi or in a motionless quietude, but he must in trance or in waking, in passive reflection or energy of action, be able to remain in the constant samadhi of the firmly founded Brahmic consciousness. So this is the challenge. I think this is what we can call as karma yoga. I often wonder at what is karma yoga. When, because of that ripening in the being, in each action you are able to carry out, in this case, the integral yoga of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. So sitting quietly and doing our contemplation, concentration is absolute, of course, it's also necessary on the part, one cannot deny that. But what about the day-to-day interactions and engagements and everything? We are able to carry that forward, that state of Brahmic consciousness, unity with the divine. So this is specifically for this yoga of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. Nor is it enough for the sadhaka to have utter realization only in the trance of samadhi or in a motionless quietude. We have seen, all the times we keep seeing that, okay, when we are all by ourselves, able to have connect with the mother, how nice, it's beautiful. But in our interactions, we feel that gulf again. But he must, in trance or in waking, in passive reflection or energy of action, be able to remain in the constant samadhi of the firmly founded Brahmic consciousness. So this is the challenge. Okay, so let us maybe take the next half of this paragraph. Yeah, anyone who would like to read, please.
Yes, I'll read it. But if or when our conscious being has, I'll just start again. But if or when our conscious being has become sufficiently pure and clear, then there is a firm station in the higher consciousness, the impersonalized jiva, one with the universal or possessed by the transcendent, lives high seated above and looks down undisturbed at whatever remnants of the old working of nature may revisit the system. He cannot be moved by the workings of the three modes of Prakriti in his lower being, nor can he be shaken from his station by the attacks even of grief and suffering. And finally, there being no wheel between, the higher peace overpowers the lower disturbance and mobility. There is a settled silence in which the soul can sovereign possession of itself above and below and altogether. Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. Really. So, this is what, yes, Jagan?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this goes in continuation to the previous one, that once the jiva is settled, it can look down upon these ups and downs, and there will come a time when he cannot be moved by these lower nature things. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. So this is, again, in Sri Aurobindo's Mother's Yoga, we see different centers of stationing our consciousness. And we had touched upon it in other sessions also, that one of the stations is, so first is that you station yourself deep in the horizontal depths of the heart, in the fourth dimension, what we call as the dimension of the psychic being. And then the other approach, which may come simultaneously or later, or there is no like formula. Sri Aurobindo says anytime it can come in the yoga, is taking the station, making the station of consciousness above the sense mind, above the body mind. Where he says that placing your attention above. So he says that when we place our attention above and we try to stabilize ourselves here, so there we are getting in touch with the Jiva or Jivatman, or in other words, he also uses the word central being. So one is psychic being, and then this is central being. Now, psychic being is part of the evolutionary journey. It is going through all the experiences, it is assimilating those experiences, it is ripening through those experiences. So the deep experiences of this life, deeper ones, richer ones, they are the ones which ripen and mature the psychic being, and they are the ones which are carried forward to the other life. And they say that psychic being is something which is organized around the soul spark. So there is, like how they portray, is like there is a candle flame, like a spark, and around it the psychic personality is forming, through all the experiences of life, all deeper experiences of life. And the central being is not evolving through life experiences. Central being is not inside evolution, it is above evolution. So that is why we see that for psychic being, we can go deeper into the heart, and get in touch with that consciousness. For Jivatman or central being, we have to rise above the body consciousness and the sense mind. Very interesting. So when we station ourselves slowly and stabilize our consciousness above in the true being, in the central being, what happens is that it's not that the play of gunas is not there. The play of gunas is there. The things are going on in the nature. That is there. But it is unaffected. The station, because of the stability in that station of consciousness above, it is unaffected. It knows that, oh, this will stay. And the more we ripen in that consciousness, he says that we feel it's not that the individuality is not there. We see individuality as a very little part of something which is more important than individuality. Like, as if, imagine that there is this space and the space is possessing me. So it's like this is central being, and the central being sees that, oh, this is the body, like nothing, there are other things also. So one sees oneself as bigger, one can say, as than the circumstances and all the gunas and the play of life. And then he can possess. So the more we stabilize ourselves in the central being, in the true consciousness, and the more we remain rather unaffected, relatively unaffected by the ups and downs that are going in the life, relatively unaffected, it happens that it kind of possesses the lower also and puts it light on the lower, because there is nothing that you want from the lower. Where are you stationed? You are stationed above. Lower में क्या है? Lower में वो background momentum चल रहा है प्रकृति का, but there is no one actively engaging in it. Now the transformation can happen from the light from above, because I am not fueling the tendencies of the lower nature. I'm not giving fuel to my desires. Desires may be there, demands may be there, but I'm not fueling them. I'm not giving petrol. मेरा petrol कहाँ लगा हुआ है? मेरा ऊपर, I'm stationed above. So यहाँ पे fueling continued. So this gains more power. This gets more concrete, and this remains like, okay, fluid. Nothing much of power. So this power then comes down as a descent and possesses the lower. Practical, we can all experience this for ourselves as we grow in yoga, not just theory. And that is why, all these experiences, we get convinced that no, the moment some cloud comes, You say, no, I don't want to be here, I want to be here. You station yourself above or deep in the heart, wherever, to each his own. So you disengage from the movement of Prakriti for this duration, so that it can be possessed again, and under the influence of the higher light, it takes a different form now. Purity in thoughts, purity in feelings. Yeah, anything here? See this, he says in the first sentence, but if or when our conscious being has become sufficiently pure and clear. So this is the, this is how do we get to know that purity is developing? So you would see that in the beginning, I'm able not even for 2 minutes to settle down my mind. For example, on breath or mother. Then you try to sit more and try to disengage from all the worldly activities, and you are able to do 2 minutes. Then you extend, 5 minutes. And thoughts may be going on in the background, but nothing interests you more than this. Nothing interests you. So again, you're pulled and pulled more towards the divine, more towards fullness. And those glitter or outer attractions, outer happenings, which earlier would disturb you, during that concentration, now they lose that grip. So that concentration time increases. You're able to, at any moment. Earlier I needed like 5 minutes in the morning. Now anytime during the day you can call that concentration. So this is just a little symptom that purity is increasing, means I'm less and less interested in the storylines of my life, or whatever, however we can say it. So a relative degree of lack of my own desires, my own demands and likings and preferences, as if they don't matter. They may be there, but they don't matter much. So I can now attend to what is important, and the mind listens, it gets concentrated. Yeah, anything?
Yes,
Yeah.
something was just striking me just now. Recently, I heard somebody describe that the station above, that place that Sri Aurobindo speaks about, as well as the heart center, that there's the possibility that if one has able to have the attention on both, and it's just something that naturally occurs, it's not about forcing it, but if that's occurring, then there's also this possibility that it's actually a column, and sometimes I've seen images where they end up just being like separate chakras that are showed as separate centers or chakras, like each independent of the other. But now I've heard it told that it's like a column. It's not necessarily separate, and the possibility for them to join, if they do that spontaneously, can occur. So then I'm suddenly, for the first time, thinking like, oh, in between is that mind, is the third eye, is also the area of the mind. And so in order for the mind to quiet, it's the effect of that heart center, which says, for the sake of this discussion, I name that as love. And the center above my head is a higher intelligence or higher knowledge. And the combination of love and that higher knowledge allowing the mind to settle, allowing like the education of those two, the fusion of the love and the higher intelligence coming together. And therefore, then the purity that, as you were speaking about, when the mind is quieter and it settles and there's more silence, and there's also this purity that we just read about in this passage, Yeah.
Yeah. So just going through these lines. But if or when our conscious being has become sufficiently pure and clear, then there is a firm station in the higher consciousness. The impersonalized jiva, one with the universal or possessed by the transcendent, lives high seated above and looks down undisturbed at whatever remnants of the old working of nature may revisit the system. So ye hoga, these revisits will happen. So even when the station is above, seated above the body mind or sense mind, the revisits may be happening as a part of that momentum which is going on, the habitual process of our patterns. He cannot be moved by the workings of the three modes of Prakriti in his lower being, nor can he be shaken from his station by the attacks even of grief and suffering. Very interesting, this part. So the three modes of Prakriti, I'm assuming, would be three gunas. I don't know. Three gunas, I think we're talking about. Three modes, or maybe it's talking of mind, life, and body. I don't know. Three modes of Prakriti. The mind, life, and body, or I don't know if the three gunas, maybe not right now, he's not talking about three gunas. Yes, Swapna?
I was thinking, is it the Rajasic, Sattvic, and Tamasic?
Yeah. So that's what I'm wondering. The three modes of Prakriti, whether it's mind, life, and body, or whether it's three gunas, what you were sharing. Yeah. I don't know which one right now he's referring to. But anyway, it seems like all the movements of Prakriti are there, but he is not moved. He cannot be moved. They are there in the lower being. So the transformation has not yet happened. I think this is where the difference between transformation and realization may come. So realization is taking station above in that consciousness, and not at all being engaged in the lower, but the lower nature is not yet transformed. It is there as it was earlier, but it's not being actively fueled by the station of consciousness in the body. Right? And finally, what happens? There being no veil between the higher piece. Now this is the descent. First is the ascent. I am trying, and now station above the consciousness. So ascent, and then the descent, which has the power only to transform the nature. Finally, there being no veil in between, the higher piece overpowers the lower disturbance and mobility. So as if you put a paperweight on all the papers which were flying here and there, and such a strong, powerful paperweight that everything is settled. All the movements of those papers moved by every gust of wind, now totally settled. So that's the descent of solid peace. And the descent comes only when I think we do certain ascent. Sri Aurobindo talks about ascent and descent. So first, for the descent, again, descent is anyway present. That is what is making us ascend. But this kind of a descent which actively transforms the lower nature has to be preceded by personal effort, which is ascent. And finally, there being no veil between, the higher piece overpowers the lower disturbance and mobility, there is a settled silence in which the soul can take sovereign possession of itself above and below all together. तो अब बेसमेंट भी हमारी और फर्स्ट फ्लोर भी हमारा. So पहले बेसमेंट थी हमारी, डिंजी डिंजी, डार्क डार्क, all the creepy crawly creatures are there, mold is there, fungus is there, no air circulation. Now the higher, the fresh air from above, fresh light and peace from above, it says no, you're also mine. So possesses the basement also. So this is a ascent and the descent, and then now leading to transformation of nature. So transformation comes towards the end. First are all the preceding events which have to be, we have to engage in: aspiration, rejection, surrender, ascent, and continuous ascent, so that the descent can come. भाई descent को कैसे पता कि तुम्हें descent चाहिए? So if I want light in the basement, I have to again and again go up. Please, give me some light. Give me some light. If I'm so happy in the dingy basement, who will give me light? Nobody would bother because I'm happy. So this is why aspiration is important in these stages. That give me light, give me light. And then somebody says, okay, maybe somebody wants light. So gives the light. And this peace and silence that Sri Aurobindo talks about, again, Letters on Yoga Part 3, we have many little paragraphs and letters where Sri Aurobindo talks about this, that how important this stillness, immobility and peace is if any descent is to happen. And why? Because if the being is like this, it's like shivering, trembling, all the movements is making me uneasy, then I'm not ready for the descent. So if I want tea to be poured in my cup, I have to keep my cup stable. Not only stable, but silent, empty, peaceful. So all the purification, because the cup has to be empty. It's a purification. तो पुराना जो था उसमें तो एंगेजमेंट नहीं हो रहा है, लेकिन अभी हमने नया भी भरना शुरू नहीं किया. So there is a certain emptiness and silence which only allows the worthy to come in, because many a time we fill up our life, that emptiness that life gives us at times, we fill it up with all kind of things which are not really worthy of it. So to sustain that emptiness and silence and peace for as long as required, it's a preparation. Like when we are preparing the field, we are just emptying it of all the old crops, tilling, keeping it empty, and then sowing the seeds. So emptiness is required for sowing the new seeds. If I keep saying that I can't stand the emptiness, so then the weeds ही उगेंगी. Yeah. Anything anyone wants to add?
Ma'am, those three modes of Prakriti, the Tamasic, Rajasic, and Sattvic, what are their characteristics like? How does one identify them?
I think there are many ways in which maybe one can explain, but something that comes very handy is that, see, we all have this sense of lack. When I am not even admitting and noticing that there is a sense of lack, that can be called as tamas, like a stagnancy. And I don't even notice that there is stagnancy. Even that notice is not there. That admission is not there of lack. Rajasic would be, and we are all full of these play of these gunas. It's not that you are tamasic and I am rajasic, not like that. So we are all interplay of these, like 20% this, 30% this, 50% this, and that keeps on changing. Sometimes I become 50% of that, 30% of that, so it keeps on changing. So rajasic would be that there is a sense of lack, I see it somewhere, and to fulfill it, I I consume, and I also run. So rajasic is also passion, for example. So there is a sense of lack, and then I become passionate about something. So it is one step better than the dull tamasic, because it allows me to move, and it also allows me to admit that, oh yes, there is something that I'm missing. Okay, let me run. So there is energy in rajasic, there is energy which is required, and mother says passions are preferable than inertia or tamas. So it makes us move, it makes us have experiences, so through experiences we learn. But if I'm very stagnant at home, then learning is not there. So rajasic can be said that, so by consumption, by passions, by running here and there, one tries to fulfill that void which is there within. And sattvic, they say, is one of, like, it slowly increases in the degree, is like there is an admission of a lack, and there is also an admission that nothing else is worthy to fulfill this lack but the divine. So there is a direction which is a right kind of a direction, uchit, in other words. So you listen to words of a guru, you read books of masters, spiritual teachers. So the direction to fulfill that lack has been taken as a kind of a right direction. And they say that we first have to grow towards the pure sattvic character, and then we have to actually transcend. So Shivji's Trishul is actually like killing all the three gunas, like beyond, transcending the three gunas. Because who we truly are, as they say, is beyond the three gunas. So it means that I am the master of these three gunas, and if needed, I can make use of any. They are not ruling me. Like, we see in Gita, Sri Krishna makes use of all the gunas. He is not ruled by the gunas. So our true seat is that, but yeah, takes time. So it's just one way of talking about it.
Ma'am, can you please pull up that passage again? So it says he cannot be moved by the workings of the three modes of Prakriti in his lower being. So, if Rajasic is a little better than Tamasic, and then followed by Sattvic, which is better than the both. So there is a being that is like, there is a mode that is beyond these three gunas. That's what you're saying, right? Okay. I really don't want to drag this example until it becomes obsolete. But when you said Sri Krishna use these three gunas, he was a master of these three gunas and applying them at the right situation. So is it that he was beyond these three gunas, that he was able to master them, or was he one of those gunas and then had mastery of the other two?
Sri Krishna is Sri Krishna. I can't talk about him really, not in a position, So I don't know what really, but one thing is there which maybe will help to understand this further. Sri Aurobindo's, there is a little essay on by Sri Aurobindo. It's also in Tales of Prison Life. Something like Ideal of Three Gunas. It's very revelatory. And maybe one should, I'll share it on the group later if I find it. I will find it in maybe Incarnate World. So one can go through that for a deeper understanding.
Thank you.
And for example, he says that why in India we fell a prey to British kind of rule, is he says that there was an increase of rajo tamasic, if I'm not wrong. And what was required to get our freedom back was rajo sattvic. So rajas has energy. It is ready to run. So sattva and rajas, I am assuming it would be a right kind of running. While they were consumed by rajotamasic, which is like there is inertia, dullness, and you are just consuming and consuming all the rajas, and how they were just in luxury, they were just depleting themselves of their energy. So that's what led it down. And he explains this. So I think it would be nice if we read it directly. Okay. So what is the suggestion? This is a bigger one. We can take a little bit here. The full. Page number 365. Let's take half of it maybe. Yeah, anyone would like to read?
I could read. Such possession is not indeed the aim of the traditional yoga of knowledge, whose object is rather to get away from the above and the below and the all into the indefinable absolute. But whatever the aim, the path of knowledge must lead to one first result, an absolute quietude. For unless the old action of nature in us be entirely quieted, it is difficult, if not impossible, to found either any true soul's status or any divine activity. Our nature acts on a basis of confusion and restless compulsion to action. The divine acts freely out of a fathomless calm. Into that abyss of tranquility, we must plunge and become that, if we are to annul the hold of this lower nature upon the soul.
Yeah.
Do you want me to? Yes?
Yeah, I don't know actually. I just intuitively stopped somewhere, but I don't know. Maybe we can put somewhere. I don't know.
Therefore, the universalized jiva first ascends into the silence. It becomes vast, tranquil, actionless. What action takes place, whether of body and these organs, or any working whatever, the jiva sees but does not take part in, authorize, or in any way associate itself with it. There is action, but no personal actor, no bondage, no responsibility. If personal action is needed, then the jiva has to keep or recover what has been called the form of the ego, a sort of mental image of an I, that is the knower, devotee, servant, or instrument, but an image only and not a reality.
Yeah, let's stop here. Okay, otherwise we'll just take too much at once. So this possession of the lower that we were reading in the earlier, he says that such possession is not indeed the aim of the traditional yoga of knowledge, Jnana Yoga, whose object is rather to get away from the above and the below, and all into the indefinable absolute. So this, in some terminologies, we call it like nirvana, like just escaping into some bliss. But the lower life remains the lower life. That we did not change. So such possession is not. So the possession of the basement of the lower nature is not the aim of traditional yoga. But whatever the aim, the path of knowledge must lead to one first result, an absolute quietude. So he says that although this possession of the lower nature by the higher is not an aim of traditional yoga, still the path of knowledge must lead to one first result, which is absolute quietude. For unless the old action of nature in us be entirely quieted, it is difficult, if not impossible, to found either any true soul status or any divine activity. So even if my aim is to escape, for that escaping, one thing which he says is basic necessity is that absolute quietude in the being. So absolute cessation of any fueling of activity of nature, disengagement in all the activity of nature, disengagement in thoughts, disengagement in feelings, disengagement in body. And that's what he's sharing, that even if the aim is some escape into some bliss, which may be true, bliss or peace or whatever the aim, the path of knowledge must lead to one first result, an absolute quietude. For unless the old action of nature in us be entirely quieted, it is difficult, if not impossible, to found either any true soul status or any divine activity. Just that which one realizes away from the activity of nature, even that realization is possible only when there is quietude in the being. So that is a necessity. If I am involved in all the entanglement and the restless activity of the nature, then even that soul status which I seek away from nature is not possible. Our nature acts on a basis of confusion and restless compulsion to action. Many a times we are just doing things, we don't even know why we are doing it. It just goes on by itself. And confusion because we are always doing contradictory things, saying contradictory things. In the morning I say something, and after 5 minutes or in the evening I may say completely something opposite of what I believed in the morning. So he says that our nature acts on a basis of confusion. So if the activity of nature is to be disentangled from, this confusion has to stop. So the quietude has to come. Because confusion is like a raw material for the nature to go on and on and on, like the momentum which it has gathered since lifetimes. How beautiful. So confusion is like a feed, like a petrol, on which those patterns can go on running. So if I want to stop their feed, stop their petrol, then I have to be absolutely quiet. It's almost like, that the nature is coming and knocking at your door and you say there is nobody home. Like you don't even say that. There is nobody home. Who will say? So the knocks on the door will keep coming. But there would be nobody who is responding. So our nature acts on a basis of confusion. So if we stop confusion, bring the quietude and silence, then the feed of the nature, the petrol of that momentum goes away. And restless compulsion to action, ki karna hi hai. No, अरे ये नहीं करती तो क्या करती? Like you feel compelled to action. this burden of doership that we carry all the time. The divine acts freely out of a fathomless calm. Into that abyss of tranquility, we must plunge. He's giving us so many little keys. In that abyss of tranquility, usually this abyss of tranquility, we mistake it and we begin to call it that, oh my God, I feel this so much of emptiness in my being. What do I do? What do I do? So, and it's actually a positive thing. We just initially we can't stand that void and emptiness that we feel within. And imagine it, how beautiful it is. All of us have bodies which like start here and end here. It's like limited if we look at it. It's starting here, this is my tummy and this is my back. So this much of a width. But if we begin to go deeper in the body, like if we close our eyes and we go deeper, 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 you would see that there is no end to this abyss. It's actually an abyss. It's like a deep void that we get in touch with. So that is what we have to make friends with. That deep void that we feel within. We go deeper, 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 deeper. You can just go on and on and on. So he says this abyss of tranquility, divine acts freely out of a fathomless calm. Into that abyss of tranquility we must plunge and become that, if we are to annul the hold of this lower nature upon the soul. So we will have to stop entertaining all these guests that will keep on coming from time to time. Sri Aurobindo uses this line, cherished guests. When we stop entertaining the cherished guests, then the soul communes with the being. Because even if you answer one little knock on the door, just because saying that, oh my God, बड़ी सुबह से बजा रहा है, टिंग टोंग टिंग टोंग टिंग टोंग टिंग टोंग, सुबह से बजा रहा है, तो मैंने कहा खोल दूं, But the thing is that वो तो आपका टेस्ट ले रहा था, लेकिन देखो तो सही कोई है कि नहीं है. Just a second, yeah. और उसको मतलब हमको ये लगा कि अरे यार इतनी देर हो गई, तो इसका मतलब कोई था जो सुन रहा था. There was somebody who was listening to the doorbells. Now we have to become that somebody who is not even listening to the doorbells. Because if I keep on listening to the doorbells, then sooner or later I will open the door. Because I will say, oh my God, since morning the poor fellow is sitting outside the door. So that's why again the higher aim comes into picture. That I have to absorb myself in something so higher that there is no time to attend to any knocks on the door. And then you forget yourself in that higher. And in that self-forgetfulness, you forget the doorbells. But if I'm just empty-handed sitting in the house and I'm saying मैं नहीं खोलूंगी, तो कभी ना कभी तो खोल ही दूंगी. Because सुन तो रही हूँ, I'm not engaged anywhere. So that's what he's stating, that forget yourself in that tranquility, abyss of tranquility. So forgetting yourself in something which is so big, so vast, so that the person who has to open the door is not available. He's gone, he's submerged. He does not exist actually. The wave has crashed back into the ocean, so who will answer? But if the wave is the wave and it's sitting, not yet submerged in that tranquility, then we will open, and we do open many times, and then we repent, why did I open? And again that we have to gain our balance. And And it's very lucrative. All those knocks on the door, they are so lucrative. At times, we are not able to say no. We're not able to say ignore it. They seem very concrete, very real, and like not, they don't appear like a bubble, like I pinch it and it's gone. No, they appear solid. They have weight. So for them to lose weight, I have to have something which has so much of weight that it just calls me and pulls me. So to give ourselves a good kind of employment, and I don't mean a work, like usually by employment we mean work, anything, to each his own, to our own swabhavas, anything which is higher, which lets us forget ourselves in that service. And even it could be even concentration. So I may have found a center in my being where I now want to concentrate. So even that could be a calling. And rather than attending to the knocks of nature, you are concentrating. And you have nothing to do with the knocks of nature. So it could be that, or it could be some work, anything. There is action, but no personal actor. No bondage, no responsibility. And this vastness we can feel, if we grow in our sadhana, we feel this vastness and wideness, like a unending ocean of tranquility and vastness and wideness, especially when we go raise ourselves above our head. Then we feel that vastness, connected with that vastness. Yeah, so I suggest that maybe after this we take next time. We have enough experiments to do from whatever we have read. Yeah, any last comments? So this, I think this is very, he's left a lot of keys, little keys, and whatever may resonate with each one of us may be different. But this, for example, the last one here, into that abyss of tranquility, we must plunge and become that. So we must use our empty times, at many times we are empty, not really much to do, or we feel this deep emptiness within us. So to allow ourselves to become totally okay with that emptiness, because that is the door to something really beautiful. We have to become really good friends with that emptiness and not try to fill up that emptiness with all kind of garbage. Or many a times, to fulfill this emptiness, actually, not many a times, mostly, we get married. Many a times get married to people who may not really we want to get married to, but because खाली बैठे थे क्या करें, खाली नहीं बैठना, मतलब वो जो emptiness है, we are not comfortable with that emptiness. So to be very okay with that emptiness, you may marry still, you may still have children, but not that you wanted to fulfill that emptiness and that is why you got married. So that's what I was sharing. Not that I don't know about marriage, but yeah. And even बच्चे भी इसी तरह से होते हैं कि बैठे बैठे क्या करें, करना है कुछ काम. So many a times we have children because घर में रौनक होनी चाहिए, you know. So for that we have children. So it's very interesting how we try to fulfill this void with all kinds of things. And yeah. And again, there is nothing wrong with things and people, but it's just the intention that if I'm doing it from a sense of completion or abundance, or I'm doing it from a sense of lack. I can't stand this emptiness, so let's have a child, something like that. And then I can't stand that child, so whatever. It goes on. So rather than that, if we can become comfortable with that emptiness and void within us, I think that can be a beautiful beginning. Yeah, so any last thoughts, any ideas before we end? So after this, we take next time. 365.
So, ma'am, today we are ending with lower nature upon the soul. Okay. I find that I strongly feel that next week when we take this session, when I, having known all this and reflecting on all this through this week, and if I am to it next week, um, then I think if we can just go through this again, because I have a feeling that there's more, that there are some details that may have missed.
Yeah. Of course we can. And I'm sure we are missing a lot of things, but still, whatever we are getting, that is enough for experimentation. Okay, so maybe taking a pause, taking a moment of silence before we leave, sharing, dedicating the merit of all the collective reading, reflection, clarity. Sharing it with all the sentient beings, near, far. May our hearts be full, content, and may we have lots of joy and progress in our life.